Hello everyone, my name is Donatella. I'm the Executive Officer at Northern Volunteering SA and I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. Northern Volunteering is collaborating with Palliative Care SA, Volunteering SA&T and Southern Volunteering to administer the Palliative Care Volunteering SA project. This project is funded by SA Health and aims to champion palliative care volunteering across South Australia. We're delighted to have you join us for the Palliative Care Volunteering SA Establishing Roles Conversation Series. And these are a series of conversations with different volunteer coordinators where they kindly share their knowledge, experience and learnings regarding different palliative care volunteering role categories. These sessions are aimed to provide an introductory overview for volunteer coordinators who are interested in establishing roles within these categories. We are aware that all volunteering organisations are different and the experiences shared within these sessions are to be viewed as examples and guidance only. Before we commence today's session, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and recognise elders past, present and emerging. I'm currently on the beautiful Kaurna lands of the Adelaide Plains. Now to this webinar. Today's webinar is on palliative care volunteering roles that come within the category of creative, arts and expressive support. These roles can be found in the following volunteering organisation settings, either client-facing, that's inpatient, facility or hospice, residential, aged or disability, or client-faced, home and community-based. I'm delighted to introduce you to our guest speaker, Kylie, who is the Palliative Care Volunteer Coordinator at Southern Adelaide Palliative Services, or SAPS. SAPS has a well-established dedicated palliative care volunteering service, which provides roles in the following settings: client-facing, that's inpatient, facility, hospice, residential, aged or disability; client-facing, home and community-based; and non-client-facing. Kylie has worked with SAPS for 6 years and as the volunteer coordinator for the past 2 years. In this role, she oversees the recruitment, training and support to volunteers who contribute to patient care and community programs. Kylie works closely with staff and volunteers to ensure compassionate, person-centred support, fostering meaningful connections between volunteers and the palliative care team. Thank you, Kylie. Welcome. Can you please describe the different types of volunteer roles you have that provide creative, arts and expressive support?
Thanks, Donatella. At SAPS, we have our creative art volunteers who provide greeting patients, offering an activity and support, and they create small comforts and check in with families. They also visit patients' rooms where they offer the art activities, legacy projects, and create cards for patients to use. This is all done for free of charge. They also do a lot of ad hoc creative art, and that is they may find a project that a patient is interested in, and they'll start doing that in our communal lounge. This then invites other patients or families to join in and partake in the session.
And can you provide a brief summary of what a volunteer shift might look like?
Yeah, so a shift on arrival runs for about 2 to 3 hours, and every shift is different depending on what is needed within Laurel Hospice or out in the community. They normally visit every room, so it's 15 beds in the Laurel Hospice, and check in to see which patients want something to do. And an art activity might include just sitting with a patient, painting together while they're chatting. It could be creating works of arts that the patient would like to leave for their family. It could also be creating something together as a family. So the patient and their family members create an artwork that is some sort of legacy for them.
And is there specific training for this role that you provide that's different to your usual volunteer roles?
Yeah, so all our volunteers receive general training and palliative care training. As a creative art, you get extra training in sensitive communication, emotional boundaries, and practical skills. Most of our art volunteers have an interest in art and that have done some formal training or have done art for most of their life.
And where do you usually advertise for these types of volunteers, or how do they hear about the role?
Yeah, so most of our volunteers are advertised on Seek volunteering, Go Volunteer, through Palliative Care SA. We also have flyers up in some volunteer centres, community centres, and word of mouth.
Hmm. And is there any specific skill, experience, or qualification you look for during recruitment?
No skills, just some general empathy, listening, and patience. With our training, we do a lot of work and a lot of discussion around what is needed, and we try and fit the volunteer within a role that would suit them.
And how do you receive referrals for new clients who could benefit from a volunteer in these roles? For example, what information do you usually need to ensure the referral is appropriate and that you match the volunteer to the client?
Yeah, so out in the community, our referrals come in from mainly nursing staff or social workers. We just like to have what interests the patients. Do they have an art background? Do they have an interest in painting? Or is it mosaic? Or is it felting? It's always good to look and find out what they are interested in before we send art volunteers to them. It'd be silly to send somebody that likes still drawings in with a painting brush.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then we try and match the skills with a volunteer. In Laurel Hospice, the referrals we don't really get because the art volunteers visit every patient's room. So, and then that communication from the volunteers visiting the room is then discussed within the team.
Right. And can you describe briefly what a volunteer shift might look like for a volunteer undertaking the role? I know you mentioned previously about the time, but what we're looking for is a day in the life. So what's the day in the life of a volunteer in this role?
Yeah, so art volunteer rocks up. They log in, put their belongings away as every other volunteer does. Then they grab what we call a handover sheet up in Laurel Hospice, and that has all the patients' names on this sheet and any interests or details that would help the volunteer introduce themselves when they go in the room. Before going in the room, they have a look at what art supplies they have and what interests them today. Then they walk around to a room. Say they walk into room 1, they introduce themselves, say hi, talk about their creative art and what it involves, and then see if that patient has an interest in art or wanting to do some legacy. They also can offer the patient to change the pictures up on their wall. Patient may have a picture up and they're just bored of looking at it. So they're like, what's your interest? And if it's the sea or the ocean, then they'll try and go and find some pictures that we've got and find one that suits the patient. If the patient would like an art activity, then they'll go and collaborate all the art belongings, utensils, tools that they need, and take it into the room. If the patient, though, is able to get out of bed, they invite them to come out into the communal lounge and do the art on the big tables there. Just give them a little bit more room to spread themselves out.
That's great. And now, what challenges have there been specifically around having volunteers in these roles?
There's a lot of emotional challenge around. You'll find in palliative care, there's a lot of death. So it's managing the debrief for volunteers. It's also managing patients' expectations that it fits within the volunteers' limits. There's also the documentation. Not a lot of volunteers just want to get their expressiveness out there, but we also require some paperwork to report back on what they've been doing with the patient, and therefore that helps the nursing and the doctors. We also do regular check-ins, team meetings, and emotional support for all our team.
So thank you, Kylie. You've already mentioned a bit about the documentation reporting and the debriefing for the volunteers, but could you just explain a little bit more how you manage boundaries for the volunteers in these roles?
Yeah, so boundaries is a difficult one because you always want to keep giving, um, especially when it's end of life care. So we have set in place that our sessions only run for 30 minutes. So when you go to do a session with a patient, say in room one, we let them know that it will be 30 minutes. Therefore, the patient knows how long they're going to be. And it also helps the doctors and nurses know that, okay, the patient's tied up for 30 minutes and we can come back and give them. We also find in hospice that 30 minutes is long enough with patients getting tired or other family members wanting to come and visit. Out in the community, it's an hour long because it includes the travel time and you don't have as many interruptions out in the community. So an hour is maximum out there. And this is always set out in place when appointments are booked or when discussing with the patient or the family member.
Thank you. And are there any specific equipment or supplies or out-of-pocket expenses that they usually come with these roles?
So for our creative art volunteers, SAP supplies everything: the paints, the paper, the card making materials, and all the tools like paintbrushes, pencils, colouring in books, canvases. With the legacy work, we supply all the alginate and the plaster to make those. Um, so it's just knowing what limitations and what expenses you can supply for your session. Some patients bring in their own products, and that's how we run. And we also get a lot of donations. A lot of family members appreciate the art, and all of a sudden you've got mountains of paints and colouring in pencils and paintbrushes being delivered to you.
Oh, that's great. And you just mentioned then about the families appreciate what the volunteer role, what this particular role provides. How else do you collect client feedback or evaluations about the volunteers for this particular role?
Yeah, so we have a what they call a patient family rep who visits Laurel Hospice. She visits on a Wednesday and goes around and asks the families or the patients for feedback on how the service is going. If we've done a project where we've given the patients gifts, so say Mother's Day, and we're giving out gifts, we then specifically say, can you let us know how they received the gifts, whether they liked them, whether they found them valuable. We also have a QR code that patients or family members can scan and provide feedback on that as well. Out in the community, we send them a survey. So it's a paper survey and a reply paid envelope so we can get feedback. It's always good to have feedback, whether it's positive or negative, just to make sure you know you're on the right path and supplying what patients want.
Great. And if another volunteer coordinator was thinking of including these roles within their volunteer program, what advice would you give them?
Start small, pilot just one project, and whether that's a painting session, just start with a painting session. Ensure you're providing strong orientation and ongoing support, and try and match your volunteers carefully to your patients. Make sure there's clear boundaries and debriefing things in place, structures, but also celebrating and recognising the contributions that not only volunteers do, but the patients as well. Asking them for feedback. How did you find that session? What can we improve on? But most important is to start small. Don't think too big. Like, just start small, and if it works, start growing from that.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you for your time and sharing such wonderful information. As I mentioned in the introduction of today's session, it was an introduction about creative arts and expressive support. If you are a volunteer coordinator and would like more information about how to integrate these roles into your organisation, please visit our website at palliativecaresa.org.au/volunteering SA hub/. Our coordinator can support your organisation with training and tools to help establish these roles. If you are a volunteer and would like to volunteer to support people at the end of life, please visit our website, palliativecaresa.org.au/volunteering SA hub/. Our coordinator can connect you to volunteer organisations who have palliative care volunteering roles available. And if you would like to keep up to date with our project activities, please sign up to our free Palliative Care Volunteering SA e-news on our website. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this session valuable. Have a wonderful day.